Welcome to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't, a podcast dedicated to helping you create the relationship you truly want.
How to rebuild love when negativity has taken center stage. Every couple experiences tension, disagreements, and frustrations. But when negativity becomes the main storyline, love starts to get buried under the criticism, defensiveness, and the resentments. Over time, this creates what researchers call negative sentiment override, where partners begin to interpret almost everything through a negative lens. Or we call it the negative narrative. There is an emotional toll to chronic negativity. Constant criticism or defensiveness doesn't just chip away at trust. It creates emotional distance. Partners start protecting themselves rather than reaching for each other, and intimacy suffers. Many of my listeners know from our 3 episodes on trust that the first lever is believing the other person has your best interests at heart. Constant negativity destroys that trust because it interrupts that first lever. How can I trust you when you look at me with so much constant negativity and I can't seem to get anything right is often what I hear in couples therapy. So many partners have a constant negative narrative in their head based on past history that blocks seeing someone grow and change. Negativity often grows out of unresolved hurts or unmet needs. Facing those issues honestly with a willingness to really understand the mistakes that were made can help prevent old wounds from festering and resentments from piling up. When negativity has taken center stage, love doesn't have to be lost forever. Today's guest that's going to help us get past negativity is Zach Brittle, a licensed mental health counselor, certified Gottman therapist, you know how we love him, and relational life therapist, and host of Marriage Therapy Radio with 4 million plus downloads. This show shares authentic conversations with couples from all walks of life about what it means to love and grow together. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's begin by defining NSO, negative sentiment override. And how does this distort our view of our partners that ends up putting our relationships at risk?
Yeah, sure thing. So you noted that I'm a certified Gottman therapist. John Gottman, who evidently you love, is
Yes.
a researcher and scientist, mathematician, and did all of this research, about 40 years worth of longitudinal research with couples to figure out what worked and what didn't work. And one thing that I find really charming about John is he is unapologetic about, he was never hoping to help people. He didn't want to help people. He just wanted to understand what the math was, basically. And in the math, in the research, there was a line that sort of delineated what ultimately they called masters and disasters. I think they've changed the name of that lately, but if you were sort of below the line, you were a disaster. If you were below the line, that was a master. There are nuances to the research that I'm not going to go into that are different than that exactly, but let's just imagine there's this line. And if you're below the line, you're in what's called NSO. That's negative sentiment override. And that means there's more negative than positive sentiment in the relationship. If you're above the line, you're in PSO. That's positive sentiment override, which means there's more positive than negative sentiment in the relationship. And it basically just means that from a mathematical perspective, looking at the relationship, it's worse than it's not. And so when that's the case, when a couple is in NSO, everything is harder. Everything is harder. Neutral things take on a negative energy. Positive things lose their power. When a couple's in PSO, neutral things take on a positive energy. Neutral things lose their power. And so it's really this indicator of kind of the starting point for any couple at any point in any time in their relationship that determines how the next thing is going to go. One of my favorite, so I think that's that's the Cliff Notes anyway on what NSO is, how it works, what the impact is. Happy to go into different parts of it if you're curious, but that's the Cliff Notes.
All right. What's the difference between occasional negativity that we all have in a relationship and a full-blown pattern of override?
I think it's characterological. Like, I think everyone should expect to have occasional negativity. It's part of the gig.
Absolutely.
It's actually required to build trust. Relationships are a constant cycle of harmony, disharmony, and repair. So without negativity, you can't actually have repair. Or without disharmony, you can't have repair. And so I think occasional negativity is actually good. It strengthens a relationship. It's healthy. It provides opportunity for learning and for growth, for trust building. When you're in a constant state of NSO, I think that's characterological. I think that's people who are more committed to themselves than they are to the relationship. I think it's people who have unhealed or unaddressed trauma that is keeping them from love. I think it's people who are unskilled in the areas around, in particular, contempt, but also just relational skill. And when that becomes, uncorrected or not even uncorrected, but just sort of unabated, like when you don't have any resistance to being more committed to self than to the relationship, then you get to build resentment. And from resentment, you get to think about everything through this negative lens, and that is problematic. It's also like false. And what I mean by that is one of my favorite parts of the research is this piece. And again, I'll throw out some of the specifics because they're not as important as the theme, but it's this piece where they observed couples doing life. And those couples had already been graded into PSO or NSO. We knew in advance whether they were a negative sentiment override or positive sentiment override. And the neutral observers on tape watched them interact, and they were counting the number of positive interactions that each couple had. So one thing that wasn't a surprise is that when couples were in PSO, they had more positive interaction than couples that were in NSO. So a PSO couple might have 100, an NSO couple might have 60. That's not a surprise. The surprise came when they trained couples to watch their own video back. And when couples watched their own video back, the PSO couples matched the neutral observers 1-to-1. So they saw exactly what the neutral observer saw. Couples that were in NSO missed about a half of what the neutral observer saw. So PSO couples, neutral observer saw 100, they saw 100. NSO couples, neutral observer saw 60, they saw about 30. So a smile, wow, a wink, a nod, a pat on the butt, a please, a thank you, anything at all that could be considered a positive interaction. The negative sentiment override couples didn't even see it. And so not only is everything harder, they're actually operating in a world that's not real, which makes everything harder. And so that's the vicious cycle that NSO couples can get into.
Yeah. And when you started out, you said the selfishness, that they're not thinking about the relationship itself. And I think a lot of times trying to help people see the us as a separate third entity that's more important than the you or me. And I think that's trying to address some of that.
I was careful to say it, and I'm careful to say it to my clients in this way. It's not I'm more committed to myself than I am to you. I think that's actually kind of unreasonable. It's I'm more committed to myself than I am to the relationship. And, I tell people this all the time. You do not have to be committed to the relationship. You don't have to. You get to, and if you want to stay committed to self, you can. That is a privilege that you have. It will just come at the expense of the relationship. And if you're willing to make that trade, that's fine. You can make that trade. You can get divorced. You can walk away. You can just be grouchy all the time. You can be miserable. That's fine. You get that choice. But if you want the relationship to work, you have to be more committed to making it work than you are to just getting your own way or making sure that you are in the right or that you get what you, whatever. Line them up.
What are the signs that negative sentiment overload has taken root in anybody's relationship? What can we look for?
I think it's just that. I think that everything is harder. I mean, I think that when you see anything and you begin to interpret it through a negative lens, hopefully, this is something I've worked very hard on in my life. You are aware enough of that it's the lens, it's not the reality that you need to grapple with. And so, when little things that didn't used to bother you, you're probably in negative sentiment override. When you are, choosing losing strategies, one of my mentors likes to call them losing strategies. When you're choosing losing strategies, you're in negative sentiment override. Nobody, I think, chooses them on purpose, which is where I think, again, this idea of self-awareness is really critical. But yeah, I mean, just again, when you're constantly irritated or you just can't get a win or you're saying the same thing over and over again, those are all signs that you're in negative sentiment override.
And I also would say that I agree with you about the self-awareness piece, because the negative people didn't perceive the same as the neutral observers. Mm-hmm. And so there is a lack of self-awareness that's huge. And I've always thought that's one of the biggest problems in relationships. And I described it yesterday to somebody as in a session as that wince, that moment when you recognize something specific about your dark side, and taking that and that wince leads you to the ownership, and that can change so much. And if you refuse to do that, that's a whole different ball game.
Totally. I had a breakthrough moment in my own relationship that really like drew this into focus for me. And it was, I found myself, my wife's name is Rebecca. I found myself saying, Rebecca's driving me crazy. And I had this, I don't know where it came from. I do a lot of therapy for myself personally, so I'll credit my therapist, Sarah. She's amazing. I'll just say that. But I had this moment right there in that kitchen where I realized that Rebecca wasn't driving me crazy. Part of Rebecca was driving part of me crazy.
That's right.
And and knowing that there were parts, then I all of a sudden had choices. I could focus on the part of her that was driving me crazy. I could do that, and I probably had some justification in that. I could also focus on the part of me that was being driven crazy and protect that part and nurture and fuel that part and make sure that part didn't get hurt, Or I could concentrate on the parts of her that I really enjoyed, or the parts of her that I knew maybe were driving me crazy because she was herself hurting, or the part, once I could sort of parse out parts or think about parts, things began to really shift for me. So I think that's a really critical piece of awareness is sort of the awareness that you aren't a thing and your partner isn't a thing, a whole thing. It's just like a whole, like all of you. There's just parts of you, and those parts are often competing. And it's that old metaphor or urban legend or whatever. It's probably not an urban legend about the two wolves. There's two wolves inside of you, and one is angry and one is kind. Well, which one is stronger? Well, it's the one you feed. That's something that has really changed the way I think about, my own relationship with Rebecca, and then also just my client work. I'm like, okay, that sounds really hard.
Yeah.
You can focus on that part, or you can focus on a different part,
And I think when you understand your own dark side, then it helps you understand your partner's dark side. And we do hook up, the people that we hook up with, there's something about their dark sides and their strengths that is really important to us that we have to sort out and figure out.
Yeah, no question. If you don't understand your dark side, and even then as that came out of my mouth, I was like, I'm not really sure if I like that way that's labeled, dark side. Like,
I thought you would give me a hard time about that.
Well, it's not even a hard time. It's more like part of me is dark. and part of me is confused, and part of me is hurting, and part of me is 5 years old, and part of me is
Sure.
really excited, and part of me is horny, and part of me is, so I just think if you don't understand that parts are a thing for yourself, I don't know how you can possibly understand that they're a thing for your partner. Like, how can you give them grace that you haven't given yourself? So I do understand dark side. I mean, I love Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, dark side of the Force and the light side of the Force, all that other stuff. But there's not two, not by any stretch of the imagination. There's hundreds.
Well, of course, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not being black and white about
I
it. I do think in duality, and
Yeah.
I think sometimes for an audience, understanding that we have that yin and that yang is helpful, because it's harder to look at what's dark or what is I'm a difficult person to live with, and here's what that means. That's what I mean by
totally.
dark side.
Totally.
Yeah. So what is the first step out of these negative problems is not positivity, and that was really interesting to me. What does it mean to return to a more emotionally neutral baseline, to have a clearer perspective? And you touched on it, but I thought we needed to talk about that a little more.
Well, I think in part it's hard to go from negativity to positivity. Like it's a weird string for a lot of people. They'll say, "Oh, that feels inauthentic," or then that feels like I'm, losing or something. And I think the neutral journey is just getting back to hold on a second. What did you call it? Whatever you called it, I sometimes call it the whoosh, but it's the impulse, or it's the thing that kind of happens to you, and you're like, oh, here's the thing, and I need to respond to that thing right now, and I need to respond to that thing in a way that protects my interests or whatever. And I think that when that happens, people who are really savvy and skilled, they can wait. They can wait it out a little bit. They can just pause long enough to go, oh, I didn't like that. Well, what am I going to do about that? I could probably lash out if I want to, but maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to, choose something else, choose something neutral. Maybe I'll just choose to let this one slide. My wife did it the other day. I watched her do it in real time. I watched her body do it. It was amazing. We were snarking about something. We were about to take a trip, and we had some lack of clarity about the itinerary, and I thought one thing and she thought another thing, and it's expensive and it's time consuming and it's whatever. So we both were a little bit agitated, and I said something, and I watched her get ready to go like, well, but like I saw that almost like come out of her mouth, and then I saw her go. And then she just like turned around and got some mayonnaise out of the fridge and put it on the sandwich or something. And then she took a deep breath and she said something like, yeah, I guess I just wasn't clear about whether or not it was on the website or on the app. This is how benign this thing was. It wasn't a big deal. And I was like, because I'd watched her, because I'm aware enough of what's going on for myself and for the two of us, I was like, totally. Yeah, I didn't know if there was an app either. I just kind of hoped there was, and that's why I was, and so then we were done. But, she didn't go to a positive place. She just went to I'm not going to do this part right now. What I'm going to do is my sandwich, and then I'm going to go back to the other thing. And so I think it's fun too when you start to get this stuff, and then you start to like see it happen in real time, like in your own kitchen, like I did. It's encouraging, and then you want more of that. And I'm like, so.
I liked your personalizing that description. Lots of guests talk about the pause and how important it is, and it gives you a moment to take a breath. But that recognizing it's fun that's a first. I appreciate it. It is.
Oh man, it's amazing. It's so cool. I mean, I do it in the car a lot. It's fun. I play this little game in the car, and I'll do it. You and I can do it right now, which is somebody cuts you off. Like somebody just pulls into your lane right in front of you. Who is it, Rhoda?
Me.
Like who's driving that car?
Or you mean the person who cuts? Oh no,
The car
Whoever
that
it
cut
is.
you off. Who is
Yes.
driving it?
I don't know. It could be a she.
It's a him.
I'm
it's a
not
he.
saying that.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's usually a he, And he's a guy about my age, and he's definitely an asshole, and he's trying to beat me in a race. Is a story I make up right away, immediately. I don't even flinch. And you did it, right? You said he cut me off, but then then I get to decide. Okay, am I gonna try and beat him in the race? Am I gonna just chill out? Maybe I'll just take my foot off the gas pedal. Maybe I'll just drive like a normal person, or listen to this radio, or look at the mountains. And then somehow maybe I'll end up passing them, and I'll go, oh, that's a teenage girl, or oh, that's an old man, or something. And I'll realize, like, I have this thing that I do where I'm convinced I'm 100% right, and I'm also wrong. Have you ever done that?
Yes.
Have you ever been like 100% sure of something and then also be wrong? That is so cool to mess around with, because it makes me go, I wonder if that's true, like when I'm in an argument with my wife, or when I'm trying to figure out how to reconcile this customer service issue that I think I have with Best Buy or something, so I don't know, man. I actually think it's really fun to slow down and sort of meta brain yourself. And you can only do that if you pause. You can only do that if you pause, and then you create. And a buddy of mine calls that wisdom. If you put a pause between the impulse and the response, that's called wisdom, because there's discernment. You have an opportunity for discernment. And when the shorter that gap is, the more you're being driven by just, like, I don't know, inertia or habit or something. And that doesn't qualify as wisdom. Wisdom's slower.
And a lot of what's underneath what we're talking about is making choices and recognizing those moments where we have choices.
Yeah.
And that I would really agree with you about that for sure.
Well, and here's another thing I do with clients too, because I don't think we recognize the moments that we have choices. I think we recognize that we have a choice in every single moment. Even if there aren't some moments where you have choices, you have choices in every moment, especially if you're talking about a relationship. So I tell my clients about door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. And door number 1 is this door. If I go through this door, it'll make the relationship better. Door number 2 is the neutral door. The door number 3 is, if I go through this door, it's going to make it worse. And 100% of the time you have access to all 3 doors. 100% of the time. Even if your partner is being mean to you, you can go, ouch, I didn't like that, my love. Can we start over? That's door number 1. Door number 2 is a little bit of like what Rebecca did. She literally opened door number 2, which happened to be the refrigerator door, and got some mayonnaise out, and just didn't respond to my snark, and didn't respond with snark. And so she just waited a second. Then she chose door number 1. Door number 3, easy. Like, what the fuck did you just say to me? You can't talk to me like that. I mean, that's easy. But I think 100% of the time we're standing in door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. And if we want to go through door number 1, usually we have to pause long enough to look at the other 2 doors and go, not that one, not that one. Okay, this one. And it might be heavier. You might need to find a key. It might be, a little farther away, whatever. But that's the work. That's actually the work of leveling up in relationships.
So besides perspective and the neutral baseline, any other strategies besides the choices in the 3 doors, which to me fits with both of those things?
I mean, I don't know. I think I tend to shy away from stuff like, go ahead and put on your rose-colored glasses, because it feels a little Pollyanna. But the reality is, rose-colored glasses are more accurate. And so, put them on. Not because you want to do Pollyanna, but because it helps to see more reality, and then make your choice from there. There's always an opportunity to be grateful. There's always an opportunity to apologize. There's always an opportunity to look at the bright side of a situation, even if it's just, hey, I'm looking forward to navigating this hard situation with you, because I always tell people, what's the best possible outcome of conflict? What's the best possible outcome of conflict? Do you have any idea?
Repair.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's makeup sex.
Oh, sex. Sure.
Like, makeup sex is, makeup sex is great sex, because we've come through something really hard. And makeup sex doesn't have to be intercourse. It can be a bowl of ice cream that we share, or eye contact, or it could be just
I think
a
there's
nice long
more
hug
intimacy after conflict of every kind.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you do it right.
That's right.
if you don't do it right, it's just violence, and it's just disrepair, and that's painful. So I think, even in conflict, there's an opportunity to go, hey, I'm looking forward to repair here. But sure, we got to do something hard because we disagree about whether to do childcare, get a nanny, or we disagree about sleep planning or sleep training or whatever, but we're going to get there. That's cool.
Any more advice about the communication? Everybody comes in saying they need better communication and softer language, really listening to try to understand how can we interrupt the habit. And I love the 3 doors. The third door is the negative reaction. But anything to help get those 3 doors in your head in some way.
I mean, it takes practice. I say it all the time. I mean, that's the reason we call our jobs a practice, because you got to practice. You got to practice thinking about the 3 doors. You got to visualize the 3 doors. You got to imagine what they're like, and you have to honor that. Sometimes it's easier to go through door number 1. At your job, often it's very easy to go through door number 1 because if you don't do that, you're going to get fired. And sometimes it's easier to go through door number 3 because you're disappointed, or you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or because you haven't gotten laid in a week or whatever. So you have to respect that you're there. There's another minor tactic that I end up saying, I guess it's not minor, but there's another little hip pocket psychology tactic that I give people all the time, which is if you want to be better at communication, you got to practice 2 things. And number 1 is practice talking about yourself. When you open your mouth, make sure you're talking about yourself. So I'm upset because I perceived that this happened, and I don't know if I'm even right about it, but I know that it bugged me and I need some help. It's very different than you did this thing and you were wrong, and you always do this, and that makes it just talk about yourself. That's just a basic baseline
make I
skill.
Statements.
But there's a second part of that skill that is also important, which is if you're having a hard time, imagine that your partner is always talking about themselves. So your partner comes in and goes, "You really fucked that one up." They literally use the word "you" and they curse at you and they say, "You did this." If you want to choose door number 1 and you imagine they're talking about themselves, an interesting thing to say would be, "Man, you sound really angry. It seems like you're really upset about something." So before I let them talk about me, and then I defend me, and I protect me from them, I just say, "Hey, it sounds like you got something on your mind. Sounds like maybe I need to listen." If you're just looking for basic, communication 101, talk about yourself. And then if you want to level up just a little bit, 102, 103, practice letting your partner talk about themselves so that when they say something to you, you can create enough pause, to choose the door that you're going to go through.
So let's say we've got a couple and one person is claiming their side of the street about their negativity. What is it that the other partner, how do you help the other partner recognize the negativity is destructive to the relationship and help things be improved?
I don't know if I totally understand the question, but I think, what you've got in your...
One partner's good at owning the negativity, and the other partner's not interested in looking at that. How can we help them take that? Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I guess I'd have some questions for that second partner about what's keeping you from wanting to look at that? What is the deal that you aren't able to acknowledge either your partner's acknowledgement or your own participation? What's going on? Help me understand that. That'd be part of it. The other thing is sometimes that I try to inspire in couples is, how they'll get into this chicken or egg scenario where they're like, "Well, you did this. Well, you did that. Well, you did that, but I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't done this. Well, I didn't do that because you did." Mm-hmm. And where does that end? That ends in misery, I try to inspire them to flip it over. So in the scenario you're painting and one partner goes, "Listen, I know I've got negative glasses on because I got bullied my whole life and that made it hard for me to, put up with some of the things that you say. Be cool if the other partner said, yeah, of course you're having a hard time. You got bullied. And you know what? It's hard. I actually have a negative thing going on too, because my parents were never home. And so I've got this fear that you're going to leave me. Well, of course you have that fear that that I'm going to leave. Like, that's just a thing that's going on. But, and that makes sense to me because of that one time I left last Thursday and I didn't come back till Friday morning. Well, of course you didn't come back. It wasn't safe for you. Like, what if they chicken and egged in the opposite direction and they tried to like out apologize or out empathize with the other person's negativity? Where does that end? That ends in exactly what you just did. A little bit of a chuckle, a little bit of a laugh where we acknowledge that we're ridiculous and we're both bad at this. And the only way out is together, But if somebody, is like owning their stuff and the other person can't participate, we're back to the NSO question, which is what's going on? Like, why can't you come out of this posture of resentment or rigidity that's keeping you from connection?
Let's talk about contempt, one of the four horses of the apocalypse, which fuels negativity and damages connections. Please talk some about this.
Sure. Yeah. Contempt is, there's four horsemen of the apocalypse. It's the most harmful. In fact, when I talk about the four horsemen, I usually give people who are defensive or critical or stonewalling like a little bit of credit. Like, those are actually they can be really useful skills. Contempt is never useful. And I used to think contempt is I hate you, but contempt is I'm better than you. And the reality is anytime I decide I'm better than you, that's made up. I'm better than you because I'm a man. I'm better than you because I make more money. I'm better than you because I'm the mom. I'm better than you because I can run faster, because I know more Game of Thrones trivia. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all made up. And the second, Rhoda, you and I get into a contest about which one of us is better, all I have to do is change the criteria. You might be like, I'm better at wearing yellow sweaters. I'm like, well, I'm better at wearing blue shirts. And now it's ridiculous, So if you can acknowledge that contempt is based up on a made up criteria, that is not serving the relationship, the healing work is to make up new criteria, and to say, oh, actually you're better than me because you're a better dresser, or you're better than me because you have cooler glasses, or you're better than me because you're so smart and you have a podcast, or whatever it is. Like, but to elevate your partner, and to learn to really, focus on the parts of them that you chose, right? You chose this person. You chose this person for a reason. Presumably they still have some of those things there. So if you want to, you can focus on all the ways that they don't measure up to your standards, or you can focus on the ways that they add value to your life. And that's how you combat contempt, which is in fact the most problematic of the four horsemen.
Yes. What are some creative and intentional ways to nurture curiosity, affection, and attention that help couples move out of the negativity?
Oh man, there's a mile long. Like, I think this is actually, again, kind of the fun part. In terms of curiosity, the Gottmans have a philosophy that they call love maps. They actually have love map questions that you can get. There's no shortage of boxes of questions that you can buy. I use one called Chat Packs. I got one right here called the And. There's tons and tons. But we play a very simple game. When we're bored and we don't really know what to talk about, we'll just say a word. Like, we'll say a word like giraffe. Giraffe. Rhoda, do you have a story about a giraffe?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
Well, that they were harder to see when we were in South Africa because they were farther away, and they were really cool. And I didn't realize they had these little bumps on their heads besides their ears. They had these little bumps, and I never knew that. I don't know why, but it's something I never, maybe because Disney giraffes don't have bumps. I don't know.
Sure, but if we wanted to right now, we could have a whole conversation about giraffes and just about your trip and about Disney things. We could do it. We could break
absolutely
into a place of curiosity, and all we did was say a word.
Yeah.
And, canoe, umbrella, roller coaster, bench,
I have
cigar.
a canoe story.
Yeah, you have. Of course you do. You have a bench. You have a bench story. You might just have to climb up in your head and go, I haven't talked about this in 35 years. You know, this is, yeah, okay, sure. Let me tell you about this canoe ride that I went, you know, and all of a sudden we're just being curious about each other, and I'm learning something new about you, and I'm letting you surprise me. And I think that you know, just, you're looking for creative ideas, just do something different, do anything different. And if that means you're just sitting in a car and you just say a word, and we know what it is, somebody will just go, you know, eyeglasses. And from the back, one of my kids might go, oh, this kid got new glasses the other day and he was da-da-da-da. And we'll just, and that's all, and we're just talking to each other. So I don't know, particularly if you feel, maybe even if you're in conflict, right? You're just in conflict and you're feeling stuck and you feel like you don't know what to do next and there's nothing good to say. Just say water bottle and see what happens. See if you can just switch the point of attack for a minute.
Yeah,
you know?
I like that a lot. Yeah, I have 150 questions on my website and for couples that don't make a dime off it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But they're there. Yep.
I'm sure it's amazing. Yeah.
I think I think questions are wonderful things, you know. All right. So, what is something you think is important that we haven't covered today that you'd like my audience to know?
Oh man, I don't know. You've got a ton of great questions, and I feel like I got to roll out my greatest hits in terms of like what was on my mind. I don't know, dude. I think for me, it comes down to it's all a practice, and I think I found out the other day, not the other day, but a couple weeks ago. I think I've discovered the secret to a happy relationship. I know what it is. I know the secret. It's 2-part secret. And so I'll give it away here. You ready?
Okay.
Part one is you got to get over yourself. And that's kind of where we started, right? I'm more committed to me than to the relationship. Like, you got to get over yourself. And if you need help doing that, get a therapist or a 12-step group or a journal or a God or something like, but you got to get over yourself. That's step one. Step two is do more things that your partner likes and fewer things that your partner doesn't like. That's it. That is the whole thing. And if you can't do number two, then you got to work on number one, and then that's the cycle, right? And so I don't know. Maybe that's something that I would have your couples or your listeners take away from our conversation today.
That's great. Please remind folks of your website and your radio show and anything else you want them to know.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Zach Brittle, and the internet can find me pretty easy. My website is zachbrittle.com. I also do have a podcast that comes out every week. It's called Marriage Therapy Radio. My format is that I interview couples. I just talk to couples about their relationship. I've gotten some really cool people on there. I interviewed my parents a couple months ago. I interviewed a couple of 18-year-olds. I have people who want to come on the show that are listeners and they just want to like talk about their lives. I got, I've had gay couples. I got a multiple. Let's see, the woman that's coming out in a couple of weeks. She's a quadruple amputee. That's like how they make it work. I mean, I think you and we have this enormous privilege of talking to a lot of couples about their relationship, and most people don't have that. Most people have their parents, their brother and their sister, maybe their neighbors. So I'm just trying to let people hear like how other couples make it work. And so that's Marriage Therapy Radio. Again, it comes out every Tuesday, and that's the easiest place to, I don't know, hear my voice more often for sure. So.
Rebuilding love when negativity dominates isn't quick or easy. It requires honesty about your patterns, empathy for your partner, and a willingness to engage differently. Day after day. That's the practice part. My children's book with great illustrations, Dancing with Your Lizard Brain, is for sale on Amazon. And thank you, Zach, for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rhoda.
Thank you for listening to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and help get the word out. To learn more or connect with Rhoda, visit therapyideas.net.